Next to Brady is Brad Garlinghouse, CEO of Ripple, longtime technology executive at places like Yahoo, AOL, and others.
Ripple is focused on how do we use blockchain technologies to take, we started really with cross-border payments. As some of you certainly know and has been talked about here, that the friction associated with cross-border payments is really decades old now. Kind of 50 years old is kind of when it was created and has not really advanced with all the technology that's come along. So Ripple started by using blockchain technologies and using a digital asset kind of native to our technology stack called XRP to solve a cross-border payments flow, to make it very low cost, very fast. And we think there's other opportunities beyond just where we started around cross-border payments, but that's obviously a very large industry. And I agree with some of the things Brady said. Over the next 5 years, you're going to see a lot of these things change maybe faster than people expect. Well, so I think adoption is in some ways ahead of where I would have predicted. You know, you're sitting here today, it's roughly a $2.2 trillion marketplace for digital assets, which Bitcoin is, maybe 45% of that. And, I don't believe there'll be one crypto to win them all. I think there'll be different use cases and different specializations. And kind of to your point, you already see, different platforms, different what are called L1 blockchains, focusing on different use cases. Ripple obviously has focused on payments. XRP is extremely efficient for payments as compared with Bitcoin or others that are slower for that purpose. But I think the adoption around blockchain continues to build. I mean, yesterday you and I were talking backstage, or I guess today is Tuesday.
This morning, yeah.
This morning, a Bitcoin ETF, a Bitcoin futures ETF launched, which, I think some people view as a major step forward. I kind of view it as a step forward, a little bit of a baby step, but I really say that because it's not actually a Bitcoin ETF, right. It's a Bitcoin futures ETF, and I think with this SEC, we'll take baby steps, and so I think it's a good indicator of where things are going. More and more institutional interest continues to come in.
Generally, let's talk about kind of your view on, what that ideal relationship with regulators would be.
Not the one we have here.
Okay.
No, look, I think there are models out there, and I'll even start by talking about the U.S. And a couple comments that we heard earlier go back to the 90s, and the United States government took a series of steps about how we were going to regulate the internet.
Right.
And that created clarity, that created certainty, and it allowed investment capital, all kinds of funds. It allowed entrepreneurs to go and build companies. And when you have clarity and certainty, there's actually a panel yesterday that was emceed by Michael Milken, and they weren't talking about fintech, but what they were talking about is you have to have clear laws. You have to have clarity so that you can invest. Whether you like them or not is a different subject.
Oh, this was the point Josh Friedman from Canada was making.
That's exactly right. And it didn't apply. He wasn't talking about crypto or blockchain. Yeah. But look, what we have here in the United States is I think, profound lack of clarity. And just saying that it's clear, as the current SEC keeps saying, hey, it's clear, but at the same time, they're forced to say, hey, is Ether a security? And they won't answer that question. If it's clear, answer the question. Like, the SEC, I think, should be, in really the government in the U.S., I think, should be trying to foster, this is a massive new industry growing, fintech broadly, certainly, but within that, blockchain and crypto. And I think we want that to do well in the United States. The UK, Japan, Singapore, I mean, there are clear regulatory frameworks. They've done the hard work to create those regulatory frameworks that has allowed investment capital, that has allowed entrepreneurs. And you're seeing a lot of entrepreneurs that may have started here in the US move because they need that certainty. There is, I think, a narrative that has been put out there, particularly by some parts of at least the US government, that crypto's not regulated. I will tell you, crypto is regulated. Ripple is regulated. Yeah. We are regulated by, FinCEN. We're registered in the New York DFS. We registered, the CFTC regulates crypto. This idea that crypto in the United States is the Wild West, every Ripple transaction is going through a regulated endpoint of a financial institution. If you're Coinbase, every account's KYC. Like, I think there are, the idea that it's not regulated, I just think that's not where we are today.
Mm-hmm. Brad, I live in San Francisco. Everyone wants to work at Ripple. Where Where does your talent come from?
We got our best quarter ever last quarter hiring. We hired 75 people in the quarter. Well, one thing that Brady said that I think is incredibly important and powerful, that I think it makes me so excited about what's going on in this industry. Yes, there's a youthful excitement and energy around people who want to get into blockchain. They want to get in crypto. That is happening, and that is from the bottom up. But look at this panel, and even I'll pick on a positive way on Brady. Like, people who have been in the industry for decades are seeing...
Kelly, too. Kelly.
No,
you can pick on me.
Yes, Kelly, too. I mean, look, I talked to a number of people who have spent their entire career on Wall Street, have an incredible, successful story, and they will say to me, I've never been more excited than what I see happening right now. And part of it is the value creation. Part of it is what I'll say is constructive disruption, because I do think it has to work together. It can't just be, hey, let's go disrupt this industry. You know, what Ripple did, which made it a little bit controversial in crypto, is we said, we don't think the banks are going away. We're going to work with the banks.
Right.
And a lot of people in the crypto world at that point anyway were like, down with the banks, down with the government. And I think it's just great as you see both ends of the spectrum. People have been in the industry for decades getting very excited about what's happening. Well, I'm not going to give away everything that we're working on, but you know, the way I think about this is that any transaction that has a middleman, any transaction that requires someone to kind of commute the trust between the transaction, with security settlement, insurance settlements. I mean, there are a lot of transactions out there that have a lot of friction. This morning I was talking to a very interesting startup called Proppy, looking at residential, tokenizing real estate and using kind of effectively an NFT to transfer the ownership of a home. Ripple has been, because our customers tend to be financial institutions and banks, some of those customers will approach us and say, hey, look, we see these other vertical applications of how you could use a blockchain like the XRP ledger because of its efficiency to solve other problems. But we haven't really, we're doing some lending stuff that we've talked publicly about, but beyond that, nothing too public.
One more for you. A lot of these are directed to you for some reason from the audience. So I found this one interesting, which is real-time payments have picked up in countries like India with UPI, and Singapore and Thailand, getting interlinked already to enable cross-border payments. Any thoughts on how you can augment those initiatives, and what does it mean for existing payment operators?
Look, I think anytime you are accelerating the last mile of a payment, that actually is good for what we're trying to do. I mean, right now, the slowest step, the highest friction, the highest cost is really this cross-border piece. And so the more successful a domestic settlement system is, the faster it is. We view that as good for everybody. And so at the end of the day, if you're dealing with UPI in India and you want to settle a transaction to the Sing dollar, you're still dealing with friction between those two, and having a very liquid, very inexpensive way to manage that liquidity management, so you're not pre-funding and putting lots of capital parked out there, I think is the natural evolution of where we're going to end up. Mm-hmm.